Monday. John Lorden here with another episode of Brain Scratch, Case Cracked. This is the show where we look at a mystery and the critical piece or pieces that helped to solve it. We want to give a very big thank you to Pamela Doss. I know she's been a friend of the channel for a while. She actually sent in today's suggestion, and of course, another big thank you to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing this one up. This is the case of Brooks County Jane Doe. It's October 31st, 1981, in the small town of Dixie, Georgia. With a population of less than 600 people, this small unincorporated community in Brooks County sits just over the state line north of Florida. The locals should have been getting their children ready to enjoy Halloween, but instead, this tiny town was about to make itself known for all the wrong reasons. Brooks County Sheriff's officers were called to a cornfield just outside of town. Near a small dirt entrance, a passerby found the body of a young woman who was partially covered by freshly cut tree limbs and foliage in what appeared to be an attempt to hide her remains. The town of Dixie had no way of handling or processing the crime scene, so they requested help from the local GBI field office. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations was able to determine very little. They found that she had died from a stab wound to her abdomen, but her neck also showed evidence of strangulation that left behind a unique pattern. She was 5 feet 2 inches tall, with shoulder-length brown hair and hazel eyes. She weighed 105 pounds and was believed to be between 18 to 24 years old at the time of her death. But there was no evidence anywhere near the body to tell them who exactly she was. Police quickly started canvassing the area for witnesses or any leads. Within days, officers received word that a motorhome with Alabama license plates was last seen near the site where the body was discovered. When the license plates were checked, the vehicle was found to be stolen, but had been seen by other witnesses at a traveling fair in Quitman just 6 miles away. When officers knocked on the door of the mobile home, it was answered by a 52-year-old man named George Newsom. Newsom worked as a carny for a traveling fair. A search of the motorhome found a rope that fit the strangulation marks on the young woman's neck. Police now had a man they thought was responsible for stealing a vehicle and murdering a woman, but that wasn't all. They also discovered that Newsom had previously escaped from a Kentucky prison. Investigators believed that their Jane Doe was employed by the fair and had run afoul of Newsom. After hours of questioning, the man refused to confess to anything, not even knowing the young woman's name. He would be held in custody for only a week before once again escaping and disappearing. Over the next couple of years, GBI agents and the Brooks County Sheriff's Office would try to identify the young woman. Flyers were sent out and appeals to the public were made on television, radio, and in newspapers. They even went so far as to display her remains at a local funeral home in the hope that someone could identify her. No one would come forward. Finally, a year after her murder, the young woman was buried at Oak Hill Cemetery in Quitman, Georgia. However, local residents didn't want her to be buried in an unmarked grave. A local family by the name of Bunting volunteered to have her buried in their family plot. Not only was she buried in a quality casket inside of a cement vault, but there was also a marble slab placed over her grave that showed a forensic sketch of her face. Known only to God was carved on the headstone. It would be another year before investigators had a break in the case. On January 13, 1983, officers found and arrested Newsom in Alabama, where he had been hiding since his escape back in 1981. While in custody, Newsom confessed to the murder in Dixie. He claimed to have met the woman at the North Florida Fairgrounds in Tallahassee, Florida, shortly before the fair came to Quitman. He told investigators that after they arrived in Georgia, the couple got into a fight over another man. This argument would ultimately lead to her death. After his rearrest, Newsom pleaded guilty at trial and was sentenced to life in prison. He would die on August 10, 1988, in Augusta State Medical Prison of Natural Causes. However, he never revealed the name of his victim. Authorities worked for decades after her burial to try to identify the woman, even having her case highlighted on Unsolved Mysteries. But in the decades that followed, answers would be few and far between. Both the GBI and the Brooks County Sheriff's Office sent inquiries around the state and the country trying to find answers. This case would remain open for 37 years to the day, until October 31st, 2018, when the Brooks County Sheriff's Office received a tip. A photo of their Jane Doe's grave had been featured on a Facebook post, along with the details of her case. The tipster, Kayla Bishop, told investigators that a childhood friend named Cheryl Hammock had gone missing in 1981 after traveling with a local fair. Now that authorities had a name to investigate, they found that Cheryl had a mother and two sisters still alive in the state. The family was able to confirm her identity by her physical description, and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance were also consistent. They were even able to offer one more disturbing detail. Shortly after losing contact with her daughter, Cheryl's mother received an envelope in the mail containing her wallet and driver's license. No explanation was given, and there was no return address. Was this simply a good Samaritan who happened upon these items, or had their killer mailed them out of guilt or possibly some twisted need to torture her family? No one would ever know, but the family still had the items in their possession and were able to provide those to police. When investigators exhumed her body, they noted that the girl's remains were, quote, in remarkable condition given the amount of time that had passed. Because of that caring community and the charity of the Bunting family, Cheryl's body was well preserved so that later she could offer all the evidence officers would need. DNA taken from her mother and sisters determined that the murder victim was indeed her daughter. On January 9, 2020, after over a year of waiting, it was announced the Brooks County Jane Doe was in fact Shirlene Cheryl Hammock. Cheryl's sisters were able to fill in most of the rest of the story. Johnny was 11 the last time she saw her older sister. She remembered that Cheryl told the family that she had met someone who worked with the fair that had traveled through town and that she wanted to go with them. Her other sister, Lynn, who was 17 at the time, remembers the phone calls her sister would make. She would call us 3 to 4 times a week. The last time we heard from her, she said she had met someone and was going to Texas. She expected to be home by Christmas and said to put something under the tree for her, she said. A week later, Cheryl hadn't called, and the family suspected something was wrong. 3 to 4 months later, her mother received her wallet in the mail. This prompted her to go to the local sheriff's office and report her daughter missing. Over the next few years, the family was offered no updates and was quickly losing hope. Occasionally, the sheriff's office would come by to see if they had heard from Cheryl. Her sisters would grow up, always wondering what she was doing. The family was close, and they believed if she was alive, that she would have contacted them. Occasionally, people would claim that they had seen or heard from Cheryl, but none of those sightings ever panned out. It was tough growing up with a missing sister, Johnny stated. Unfortunately, several years later, Cheryl's mother visited the sheriff's office in the hope of receiving an update, only to find that her daughter had fallen off the missing persons list over the years, possibly when the department moved from paper records to electronic files. No one had even been looking for her. To find out years later that her killer had been caught and convicted while never revealing her name hit the family even harder. The sisters and their mother have been to Brooks County to see Cheryl's grave and plan to bring her to their home in Thomaston for a reburial. Johnny would remember it was difficult growing up, not knowing if she was safe or if she was being taken care of. A lot of worrying, a lot of looking. We searched and searched, and we just had no answers. It's very sad, but at the same time, it's a very joyous moment. Case cracked. I would like to give a big thank you to ABC News, Go.com, WTXI, the Valdosta Daily Times, AJC.com, 11alive.com, and WALB.com for information contributing to today's story. I also want to give a huge thank you to the Bunting family and the generosity of that community. I don't think that they allowed her to be buried on the family plot and gave her burial those types of accommodations to preserve her for further DNA testing. But it just goes to show that sometimes when you make a good faith effort like that, you can't anticipate the results of it, and it goes on. And that definitely happened in this story. When considering what kind of cracked it, I think we also have to thank Facebook for being there, for being a place where people do have online communities and can share information like this. And, you know, a lot of you know out there, I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook kind of on a social media level, but you can't deny that if you're trying to reach groups of people and raise exposure, it's obviously a place that can help, as it did in this case. And of course, I think the real hero for me in this is Kayla Bishop, who actually kind of put the pieces together by seeing that post, and then was also brave enough to contact the sheriffs and talk to them about it. I know that that's not always easy. I know it from personal experience. I know it from a lot of people that I've talked to over the years in this line of work. So I really appreciate that Kayla was able to take that concern that she had that maybe she wasn't 100% certain about and actually put it into play, and that's the piece that helped crack this case. Just to let you guys know, I know there's not a lot of photos in this episode. This town is so small that the only picture we could actually find of it is the post office. So I also threw in a picture of the map just to give you some idea of where this is. Also, we could not find any pictures of George Newsome. Christy couldn't find any. I went on my own search and couldn't find any. But, you know, sometimes maybe it's better to just leave those images in the past and not share those going forward. This doesn't seem like this was a very good man, and I'm kind of disturbed by the fact that he would actually be sentenced for this crime and wouldn't give police her identity and allow her family to grieve their loss and move forward and make them wait so long after the fact. I certainly don't respect any of that, so maybe it's a good thing that his face isn't in today's episode. A big thank you to several new patrons: In the True North, Nikki, Catherine Andrews, Rob Poleman, and Jonathan Crowley. Thank you guys so much for helping to support the channel. If you'd like to do the same, you can head over to www.lordandarts.com, sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here doing what I love doing, spending time with you. I hope you guys will come back and do that again on Wednesday with a brand new episode of Searchlight. And on Friday, a very, very special Brain Scratch. I'm so proud of this. It's been years that I've been dreaming of being able to release this episode. I've got footage of me talking to a body language expert. I don't think you guys want to miss that. So please come back for Brain Scratch on Friday. But I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here on the Lord and Arts channel.